Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here, and in this video we'll be diving deep into ESO's upcoming Ascending Tide DLC and Update 33, which promises some fantastic new dungeons, powerful new sets, brand new PvP rewards, and a ton of other great base game changes that will dramatically improve the game for many players. The timestamps have been provided below if you want to jump ahead to a section, and we also have an Ascending Tide DLC guide over on our website, hacktheminotaur.com, which covers these changes in more detail and also links to my other videos on those topics. So feel free to check out that link down below for more details. That said, let's jump into the video and everything you need to know about Ascending Tide and Update 33. Alright, so the first thing to keep in mind with any major ESO update like this one is they usually come in two parts. The first part is the new content, which in this case is a 2-dungeon pack called the Ascending Tide DLC. These 2 new dungeons kick off the year-long Legacy of the Breton story, with a brief introduction to some of the factions players we will be facing off against in the main chapter expansion this summer, as well as some callbacks to other popular characters from ESO's past. To access these 2 new dungeons, you either need to be an ESO Plus member or buy the dungeons separately from the Crown store as usual. Now, I have played both dungeons. They are fantastic, and they offer a variety of powerful new gear sets, which we'll dive into in just a minute. Now, the second part of this release is a free base game update called Update 33. This is bringing in a ton of important changes, including class updates and account-wind achievements, which we'll discuss later on in this video. But the important thing to keep in mind is that all of those changes are basically free, whether you buy the new dungeons or not. So this brings us obviously to the new dungeons coming with the Ascending Tide DLC. As I said, I've tested them both out on the PTS and they are quite impressive, and the sets that you can get here are actually really good as well. And the first dungeon is called Coral Airy, and this can be found on the northern coast of Somerset. Coral Airy fits in well with the rest of Somerset, by the way, so if you're a fan of that zone, of that past chapter, I think you'll enjoy this as well. There's lots of colorful caverns, ruined elven structures. It really is pretty nicely designed. Coral Airy also serves as a base of operations for the new Ascendant Order faction, which is going to be one of the main players in this year's chapter. Now, the second dungeon is called Shipwright's Regret, and this one is located in the zone of Rivenspire. This new dungeon actually has a lot of lore behind it, which is pretty interesting. Basically, this is one of the shipyards that was responsible for building the All Flags Navy, which defeated the Slodes back in the first era of Tamriel's history. Now, the shipyard has since fallen into decay, and its workers are turned into ghosts and zombies. So it is a pretty scary place. We'll also see the return of Zaji, the Khajiit here, as he looks for some upgrades to his own ship, the Perfect Pounce. As I said, I played both dungeons over on the PTS. I think Shipwright's Regret is probably my favorite. I really like the whole haunted theme that they have going on here. Now let's go over the sets next, as I'm sure this will be a big determining factor for you as to whether or not you try out these dungeons for yourself. So the Coral Airy dungeon is the first one that we'll look at. We have 3 basic sets and 1 monster set, starting with Maligalig's Maelstrom being the light set, Griffin's Reprisal being the medium set, Glacial Guardians the heavy set, and then Kargeda the monster set. I would say out of all of these, Maligalig's Maelstrom is not only the hardest to say, but it's probably the most interesting. This actually deals damage based on overhealing, which is a pretty interesting mechanic. I could see this maybe working on something like a Magicka Sorcerer, using the Twilight Matriarch. Maybe you'll get a lot of overhealing with that, which then you could turn into damage. I've also personally tried out the Griffin's Reprisal set. This is pretty nice on a damage over time focus build. I actually am using this on my Stamina Warden, which I posted recently, and it does a fair amount of damage, plus it does summon a Griffin, which is pretty cool. I don't see the heavy armor set, Glacial Guardian, getting a lot of use, maybe for some niche builds. Kargeda as the monster set does apply some nice cost reduction for allies, but again, I don't see that being very widely used. Over to the Shipwright's Regret dungeon, we again have 3 basic sets and 1 monster set. Starting with Stormcursed's Revenge, this is the light armor set for this dungeon. Then we have Spriggan's Vigor, the medium armor set. Turning Tide is the heavy armor set, and then we have the monster set called Nazare. The light armor set here is pretty interesting. It deals shock damage with a 15% chance to proc, and this has no cooldown, so for a class like the Sorcerer, this might be useful in some instances. Then you have the medium armor set, Spriggan's Vigor. I wasn't a huge fan of this. It does have some cost reduction and max stamina, but you need to stack it up, so that will take some time. I think the best set by far here, though, is the heavy armor set called Turning Tide. When you block, you gain Flowing Water, which causes your next bash attack to apply major vulnerability for 10 seconds. So that's almost on-demand major vuln. Pretty strong debuff to have, especially if you're a tank. You definitely want to look into this set. And I would say also the monster set here is going to be pretty interesting for some different builds. This actually extends the duration of all major debuffs and minor debuffs that you apply when you use your ultimate. Now, this is going to depend on the amount of ultimate that you spend. 1 second per 20 ultimate. So if you have your ultimate maxed out, you could get potentially up to 25 seconds extra duration on those debuffs, which is really powerful. So that is it for the new dungeons and the new sets. Like I said, I think there's some really good things here from both dungeons, actually. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Are you going to be farming any of these new sets for your builds, and which ones? So in addition to the PvE content we just reviewed, there are some new PvP rewards coming with Update 33 as part of those base game changes. This includes 3 new rewards of the worthy PvP sets, as well as 3 new Imperial City monster sets, and a new PvP outfit style that can be earned with Telvar stones. Let's start with those rewards of the worthy sets first. 3 sets here, like we said. The first is Rally Cry, which is a light armor set. Then we have Hue and Sunder, the medium set, and Enervating Aura, the heavy armor set. I think out of all of these, my favorite is probably the medium armor set called Hue and Sunder. I can imagine this being extremely powerful on a couple of classes, namely Stamina Warden and Stamina Necromancer. Combine this with the AoE damage and burst potential that those classes have, and yeah, this is going to be pretty strong. I also am interested in the Rattling Cry set. I think this is going to be very good for healers and support builds, but keep in mind that it does lose power, actually, the more people that you have in your group, so that's definitely something to consider. Up next, we have the 3 monster masks that can be earned in Imperial City. These are Nunatak, Lady Maligda, and the Baron Thirsk set. Now, all of these have very specific bonuses that revolve around applying specific debuffs, like draining your enemy's ultimate, reducing their critical damage, or causing them to take increased critical damage. It seems like these would be more useful in group play versus solo PvP, but as always, let me know what you think in the comments section. Finally, I did want to show off that new PvP style that can be earned with Telvar stones. This is called the Dragon Guard Berserker style. This comes in separate outfit style pages that you can buy from one of the Telvar merchants in Imperial City. Keep in mind there are a few restrictions on this. Number 1 is these pages are bind on pickup, so you won't be able to trade these. And in order to purchase these, even to begin with, you need to be at least Alliance War rank 20 to actually buy them from the vendor. Much like any patch in ESO, Update 33 is going to bring about some potentially significant changes for you and your build, especially for certain classes. Let's start first with the Dragon Knight class, which is going to see a nice buff to the Burning Embers skill. This ability is now going to heal you for 100% of the damage done anytime this skill deals damage, which means Dragon Knights get healing on the initial damage, as well as every tick of the dot effect, basically turning this skill into a huge heal over time effect. And with the dynamic scaling changes we'll talk about later in this video, even Stamina Dragon Knights can now use this skill for reliable self-healing anytime they want. Nightblades this patch are going to get a small buff to the Strife skill, as well as the Funnel Health Morph, increasing their damage done. Sorcerers this patch get a nice buff in duration to both Hurricane and Boundless Storm. Hurricane will now last 20 seconds instead of 15, and Boundless Storm will last 30 seconds. Templar's got a big batch of updates with Piercing Javelin and its morphs now ignoring block, Biting Jabs now granting major sorcery and brutality, Sunfire granting both major prophecy and major savagery, and Radiant Ward getting a stronger shield. Now, Warden's got some nice updates this patch as well, particularly when it comes to healing, as Fungal Growth and its morphs now heal for significantly more, and Lotus Flower gets a cost reduction, as well as now grants both prophecy and savagery at the same time. And the Lotus Blossom morph actually got increased to a 60-second duration, which is really, really good. Unfortunately, the only class that didn't see any real buffs or changes this patch was the Necromancer class, only a small amount of minor bug fixes. There were some other major changes this patch as well when it comes to things like weapon skills, for example. In the one-hand and shield line, the Power Slam skill got some major changes. This now does more damage, and it also counts for a bash attack, helping you to automatically interrupt enemies. The two-handed skill line saw a duration increase for the Stampede morph, as well as major sorcery getting added to the Rally skill and its morphs. We'll talk about that more in just a minute. Many other changes to skills in this patch. So if you want to see the full list of changes, I will have a link right here to my full review. Go ahead and check out that video if you're interested. Another huge change coming in Update 33, which again is going to be free for all players, is an update to ESO's achievements system, which will make most achievements account-wide moving forward. This just means that most achievements that you've earned on your main character will also be considered completed on any other characters that you have as part of your account, including any new characters that you create. For example, this means that titles are now account-wide, meaning any titles you've earned on one character, you'll be able to use on all other characters. You'll also be able to purchase items and antiquity leads that require achievement completion on any character, so long as at least one of your characters has completed that achievement. Also, some things that are commonly tracked through achievements are still going to be tracked on an individual character basis. That includes enchanting rune knowledge, motif crafting knowledge, lore books, sky shards, public dungeon group event achievements, and the Dragon Guard Sanctum daily achievements. The most important thing here to realize, though, is that once Update 33 launches, you do need to actually log in on each of your characters to register their achievements and their titles so that you can track those across your entire account. And if you delete a character before logging in as them, their achievement data will be gone. Speaking of achievements, this is going to lead us into our next major update, which has to do with the Undaunted skill line and how players can actually level up that skill line now moving forward into Update 33. Now, if you're familiar with the Undaunted skill line, you probably already know that in order to level this up, players need to earn Undaunted guild reputation points, which typically came through earning achievements. Well, with the switch to account-wide achievements that we just talked about, that system really would not work anymore, because if they kept it the way it was, all you would need to do is max out your Undaunted achievements on one character, and that would level up the skill line on all of your other characters. So instead, what they've done now is they've changed how you can earn reputation points on your character, and they've also changed some of the amounts. They've actually increased them. You'll be able to earn more points by completing dungeon quests. So the best way to earn reputation points is going to be through pledges, with completing the pledge on veteran mode or veteran hard mode earning you the most amount of points. For the full breakdown on how to earn those points, make sure you check out our written guide. Link to that is in the description. There are some additional updates coming to the Crown store this patch that I thought I would mention. These obviously are not free. You need to purchase these with crowns, but they will add some convenience to the game if you're interested. Now, first we have the Deconstruction Assistant, which is similar to the Merchant Assistants that we already have in ESO, but this one is specifically for deconstructing items. I did test this out already on the PTS, and it works really well both for PC and console players. So if you are one of those people that's into crafting, and you never want to waste those materials, then you may want to consider this new assistant. She's called Gilladil, the Rag Picker, and basically she'll let you deconstruct weapons, armor, jewelry, glyphs. Anything you would normally deconstruct at a crafting station, you can do through her instead out in the world. And then the other thing I thought that was worth mentioning was multi-rider mounts getting added to the Crown store. Now, I don't think these will come out on day one necessarily. Same thing with the Deconstruction Assistant, by the way. You might have to wait a couple of weeks for these. But these are the long-promised multi-rider mounts. This will work with another player, or you can even mount up with your companion. It works either way. And the two options here are the Duo Dynamo Dwarven Spider. You can see this is what that one looks like. It looks pretty awesome. And then we also have the Grand Pillion Draft Horse, which is the second multi-rider mount coming soon. So again, these are all Crown Store items. If you're interested, definitely check those out. Finally, we need to talk about the hybrid updates coming to the base game in Update 33. These changes are literally some of the biggest ever in ESO's history when it comes to increasing build diversity and improving the viability of unique and hybrid builds across the entire game. Whether we're talking about beginner and solo builds, all the way to endgame PvE and PvP content. I've been talking about this a lot in my recent videos, all of my recent builds, I'm mentioning this as well, so hopefully this is not news to you, but I'm going to explain it in a little bit more detail. So this change comes in essentially two parts, one being hybridization of buffs, and two being dynamic stat scaling. Now, as far as buffs, this change is pretty simple, but it does make a big difference. So starting in Update 33, you have skills like Camouflage Hunter, for example, which are generally best for stamina builds because they give a stamina buff, namely Major Savagery, but these will now be giving you both versions of that critical buff, so Major Savagery and Major Prophecy together. Now this means a skill like Camouflage Hunter will be great for stamina builds, but you can also run it now on Magicka builds as well as hybrids. Some other great examples of these improved buffs that you're going to see in Update 33. This includes Degeneration from the Mages Guild, That's going to give both major sorcery and major brutality moving forward. So think about running this maybe on a stamina build where you don't have access to that buff. Bow builds, I think specifically, are going to benefit from that a lot. And then we have skills like the two-handed rally or forward momentum that we mentioned earlier. This is also going to give major sorcery in addition to major brutality in Update 33. There are many, many more examples of this actually, these hybridized buffs. But in general, it's just going to open up a lot more possibilities. For builds, you're not going to be limited to specific buffs. You're going to be able to build your character in whatever way you want in the future. Now that leads us to our second change, which is called dynamic stat scaling. Again, I've talked about this in the past, so I'll have some links to other videos so you can check that out in more detail. But this is basically the big one. This is the huge change that's going to shake up build options a lot in the Elder Scrolls Online going forward in Update 33. Basically, what's happening is all offensive and healing skills in the game are now going to scale up with your highest offensive stats. This means that stamina builds can use skills that cost magicka, and those skills will be just as effective and powerful as their normal stamina skills. Obviously, this is going to work the other way as well, with magicka builds being able to effectively use stamina skills. So I think the options that we're going to have in this update is really just mind-blowing. There are so many different skills that you can now try on your character. For example, on my recent Stamina Nightblade build, the Blood Knight, I'm actually using Swallow Soul as a DPS option. This hits nearly as hard as Surprise Attack, so almost the same amount of damage, plus I get the extra heal over time for 10 seconds. Really great for survivability, plus I can still do damage if my stamina is running low. Also on the Nightblade, any morph for your Execute skill will now work regardless of your build. I'm using Killer's Blade because I'm a melee build, but I could just as easily switch to Impale if I wanted to play something like a ranged Stamina Nightblade bow build, for example. And those are just a couple of the options that you have to mix up your build. I've also been working on a really powerful setup for the Stamina Sorcerer using Haunting Curse on the front bar. This thing will hit really hard if you have high stamina and weapon damage. Plus, it hits twice and it does AoE damage. So kind of similar to Sub Assault on a Warden. Or you could consider using other magicka abilities, like Mage's Wrath as an Execute, or even Lightning Flood as a back bar dot. So again, tons of options here. No matter what build you're working on, you have more skills to choose from to make your build exactly as you want without suffering any loss in terms of efficiency. The only thing you need to manage is your resources. So hopefully this all makes sense and you now feel prepared for Update 33 and the Ascending Tide DLC. If you did find this video helpful, please do me a favor and crush that like button. It absolutely helps out the channel. Make sure you're subscribed for many more ESO guides and builds coming soon. And consider joining our YouTube membership where our Tier 2 channel members have access to even more amazing and unique members-only builds like our brand new Stamina Sorcerer Hybrid Sword and Shield build, the Juggernaut, that you're seeing right now in the background. This build has a massive 50k max stamina, 6k weapon damage, while mixing in a variety of those stamina and magicka skills for a truly unique playstyle. If that type of content sounds interesting to you, just click on that join button down below for more information. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you're doing well, stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.